I've got a question for you as well. I mean, you're on the number one show in the world, right? Yellowstone, and you're on the number one film in the world on Netflix. And we are in South Africa. I mean, we are like the zip code we are in is Johannesburg,
So
in
zero
Sandton,
one one,
zero
bro.
one one,
Yes,
right?
sir.
So this is taking place in South Africa, and you guys are African creatives, and equally, you know, and there's this notion that Africa, we've seen like Prime TV left, and all that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and we're seeing Netflix is staying, Showmax is also pivoting, and all of that, and yet you guys are impacting at a global level, right? How can we, or how can the audience at home be able to kind of connect with that, the reality of that? Why is it that your destiny you think has put you here? Why are you here now? What is the importance of you now here for the business of entertainment and this continent? Responsibility and so forth. Right. I've always said, don't go to Hollywood. Let Hollywood come to you. I've always maintained. That's my saying. But I'm just curious. No, let's start with
Yeah,
you.
go
Yeah,
ahead, go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing, but there's realities. I think for as an artist, was an artist first, trained as an artist first, and then you get older and you realize that there's much more to this ecosystem than just you, right? There's so many more moving pieces, but obviously I have tremendous ties to the continent. But there's more than anything, it was an opportunity to say, how does one begin to make true impact, right? As an actor, it's great to be on this project, that project, whatever. You don't own any of that, right? So you've done it, and then that's it. You've made, hopefully you've made some money to be able to sustain yourself in some shape, form, or fashion, and maybe get residuals from that. But you don't own the intellectual property of your work, right? And as you start to get older and you start to look at how things are working, ownership opportunities in IP conversations start to have more of an impact, right? I think there's a very, very well-known actress that we were at her husband's thing a couple months ago, and that had done some very, very successful movies. Everybody would know her because she's an Oscar winner. But it was fascinating when we were sitting and talking with her when she was like, I don't own any of the IP of the projects that I'm in. And I'm like, imagine you're an Oscar winner who has been doing this for 3 decades, and you own none of the intellectual property of the projects that you're on. And so it changes the way, and then even for them wanting to come and do more projects here was the opportunity to have more opportunities to grow and have ownership and to see it from the grassroots level, not just at the finished product, right? To be a part of the development, not just receiving the scripts. And I think that as for me, part of my, I would say, emergence in what I wanted to do is I always wanted to kind of produce. I love those types of things, but I had to be willing to understand what everything does. I didn't start as an actor. I did background, and I was a PA, and I was a nanny, and I was all this, but I did all these things. I just wanted to be on set so I could just see, so I could have an appreciation. And so being in Africa to me is an opportunity to be able to say, I have a great idea about what it looks like in the US. I know what works internationally. Now we can come here, which is the past, present, and future. The true land of opportunities is where we are right now. On the continent, and now how do we galvanize with the right people and actually put our energy and resources into something and not feel like we're going to try to scale by and look at it through the way that the world perceives Africa, right? Because I think that's part of the thing is I think the world oftentimes perceives Africa on these two mediums, super poor or fantasy, right? It's like kid with bloated stomach or Wakanda. Like there's no middle ground. It's just those types of things. And I think what you've done with Heart of the Hunter, helicopters and things, I think that shows that there's these great mediums. In Cape Town, there's these phenomenal mediums in Africa. So that's just what, at the end of the day, that's what, I wanted to be able to be a part of. And I've been very blessed because of what I do with Yellowstone. That's given me the autonomy to be able to do that. But now it's about being intentional and capitalizing off of that.
Yeah. You say you, Bonko?
Yeah, that's cool. I don't know. For me, right now, like, it's really just about being an artist and I think the higher we get, you know, I think really the success, all it really does afford me is the freedom to do what I do, you know, to really start making the, you know, the demands of, let's say, the industry on you know, the trends of the industry go from 70-30, 30 being like what I want to do, and negotiating those to a 50-50, you know. That's really what I think I'm personally doing, you know. But as to what is happening and what's happening in Africa, what's happening in the continent, in the country, in the industry globally, yeah, man, I don't think I'm too concerned about those things. The grass grows, the sun shines. I've got no control over that.
Sure.
You know, like, that's why I'm saying, like, what's really important is that I'm me fully, and I'm individual and I'm specific, and that's why that's the question, right? Do you make it happen, or is it happening already and you just have to be aware and ride that wave? I have no influence on how things have transpired outside of just doing my fucking job, showing up, doing my job, being creative, being open, being committed, you know, being Bonko. Like, I've never wanted to be like anyone else. I like being me, you know, I like what I do. I think I'm very blessed. So that's what I'm going to do every day. And if it turns out in the greater scheme of things, I'm at the front line of this big, then so be it. But it's not my intention, you know, because I understand that as much as this is great, it's fleeting. Especially in our industry, the contracts last for as long as the job. You know, so if it's a 6-week shoot, we're only employed for those 6 weeks. So what's the use of imagining this grandiose thing, you know, in the future, going so far ahead, when it's really about being present right now? And if someone had to tell me one day that we have to pass this on, I never want to feel like I held on to it too tight. You know, if someone ever has to say, "Okay, Bonko, you were the you know, the guy that came before Jesus, John the Baptist." We often feel like the Jesuses, right? We often feel like we're going to be celebrated. We're the ones. If someone had to tell me, that's dangerous, right? If someone had to tell you today, "Oh, Bonko, you were actually only clearing the way for these kids behind you." And if maybe I had a perception about those kids, I saw myself better than those kids, I'd be ruined.
But I think there is a sense of, as a creative, as an artist, you know, the ones that came before you fed a certain creative process that you have adopted or have learned. You know, the art classes that you went to, you were taught, okay, no, this, you know, this kind of paint works for watercolor, for oil painting, and somebody had to have said that standard that you know, that construct that you worked within, and then you know, you started being creative outside of the box. Like, I can think, well, I don't have to be inside this. I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna be Bonko. I'm gonna be Denim. I'm gonna be Mandla, right? So I think that's where I was coming from. But at the same time, I think as we are also, you know, writing with pictures or with performances, with, you know, with these films that we're doing, we are also rewriting a certain narrative. We are also decolonizing the notion that you can't make a film like Heart of the Hunter in Africa, you know. It can only be done at this particular location in the world with this budget and with these types of people. And
it's intentional.
Yeah, it's very intentional to say, no, you know, like, no, this is the actor. What? This is the actor I want to work with. You know, I want to work with this actor. He's going to be, you know, I've got chemistry with this actor, you know what I mean, from a director standpoint.
Right.
You know, oh, no, how about trying this person? You know, how about, no, great. Maybe another film, not this one. Maybe the next one. We'll get the next one, right? On this one, this is what we're gonna do.
Right.
And I think that's very important as we and again, it's moment by moment. When we're working on Yellowstone, on Heart of the Hunter, you're not saying, "Oh my God, this is going to be the next biggest blockbuster." You're doing the work. You're like literally there. Okay, moment by moment. Otherwise, you get lost.
Well, yeah, I do think to a degree. I mean, and I'll give you the final word on this. Like, for me, my philosophy is very much about you have to have a big picture, and then you scale back from what that picture is to live in the reality, right? Otherwise, I feel like you get caught up in too many things. Oftentimes, if we think about some of our conversations that we have, and then we have to have one of our partners come and say, "We're talking about this," because we get together, we're like, right, and that's what we do. But I think that's important because it's vision. But then sometimes we have to be able to have people that are like, okay, but right now this is where we are. We're gonna get there, but now we gotta still, we have to reverse engineer this. And so much for the continent, what I know is happening is that we are changing a narrative, regardless if you want to acknowledge that we're changing a narrative or not. The narrative is happening, and there's people that are talking about this in places all over the world, saying, "I now want to go there because I'm now seeing opportunities. I'm now seeing places that I want to visit." In the same way that you looked at New York City because you want to go to the Statue of Liberty or to watch a New York Knicks game, in the same way that you want to go to France because you want to maybe feel like you're going to get engaged or find true love in front of the Eiffel Tower. The same things, right, is what we're doing here on the continent. And I think that, yes, it's important to think about what we're doing, but I think in the larger thing, this is part of like that as you go, we go type of things, right? It's the Ubuntu type of feel, which I think that's what is a blessing about what it is that we do. I don't know if you want to have a last word.
No, I agree, man. I think also, I'm gonna just keep going back to the big inquiry like every artist should make is that, am I doing it or is it happening, right? And I'm always, that's always my inquisition, is that, do I have to have an influence on this thing, or is it, I can't make it rain, right? But I can prepare for the rain. So how much of my input is actually valid in the greater scheme? When you say keep your eye on the big picture, I mean, how big is big? And how big are our different pictures, right? Subjective. It's very subjective. But the fact that you understand that there's a bigger picture allows you to always be in connection with the expansion of it, right? Because what if you get to what you believe is the big picture? Then like you have Denzel, who's worked on a different, which is the bigger picture, and you're like, fuck, I actually limited myself. So for me, I'm of the mind that Africa is Africa. I'm African, I'm born here, I understand this. I mean, we all know this, right? We're a young country. We're 20, how old are we?
30 years this year.
30 years? Think of a 30-year-old person, bro, right? They're young, dude. They're also kind of just discovering themselves. Sure. I mean, I'm 32, and I'm just like, dude, I've got a future ahead of me. So everything that's happening, I think, is happening in proportion to what South Africa is. And as much as we're in this faction of film, you guys there's Tyler, there's Nasty C, there's guys like Blackie, you know what I mean? There's Drickus Duplessis, there's this, so it's not...
Springboks.
So you ask yourself, okay, fine. As much as I'm actively doing this thing, you're realizing, no, this thing is happening.
Well, it's happening, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying, and I agree with it completely and fully. It's a conversation we were having. I can't remember who it was with. I think it was some musician. No, it was some creative, some emerging filmmakers, and I was saying, what are we doing in the film sector? Where is the Nasty C? Where is the, Tyler, as you said just now, Sia Kolisi and all that. But I think it's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. There's no There's no thing of saying that it's, oh, we have to.
Yeah, like how much influence do you have on that happening?
Yeah. But I also feel like it's important to be intentional or to say, okay, that's like when you're driving a car.
Yeah.
It's happening. You're driving a car, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you start going,
it's gonna.
You've intentionally said, I'm going to take this car and go whip.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, I'm gonna,
not
driving the car anymore.
Yeah.
You're gonna capsize.
Yeah.
So I'm driving this car. It's going this way. I'm loving this car. It's so comfortable. Whoa! I'm gonna put on. I'm gonna put more gas on it. It's gonna go faster. I gotta be careful when I'm driving. Oh, careful, okay. There's a corner, there's a curve. Oh, I'm gonna go faster. I love it going faster.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe this car doesn't go as fast as I want it to go. Let's get another car.
Sure.
Then but now in the process of doing that, please let me go and sharpen my fast driving skills.
Yeah. Let me get an
I don't want to
advanced
fucking capsize
driving.
on this thing. So
Yeah.
you go for driving lessons on how do you go 300 kilometers per hour and still feel comfortable because it's speed.
Yeah.
Speed is relative, right? So
goals are relative.
Yeah.
Speed is relative.
So, but how do you compound on what's happening so that you can keep staying sustainable in what you're doing? That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah. No,
So how for instance Siya Kolisi, captained and won World Cup back to back. That moment, and I feel that's the story. I don't, I don't want to reveal it, but that's the story of Siya Kolisi. When he was sitting there in France, he had to sit on the bench where they were reviewing whether he should be let into the game again or he should be kicked out on the penalty. I don't know if you remember that moment, right? I think, that's the story of this guy. He's like, I just did the World Cup and I'm a black man. I'm sitting, I'm captain in this. Nobody's ever done this.
Yeah.
Black or white. I'm the first person who's doing this. And the whole, of who I am was on my shoulders. I might get kicked out.
Yeah.
This is going to be my legacy. I want, you know what I mean? What's going through his mind is he even seeing the game?
Yeah.
Right? Is he being blacked
Yeah,
out?
just blacked out.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then he comes into the game, and then they win. That for me is what I'm trying to get at. It's like he stayed calm.
Yeah.
He didn't go, oh no, you. What are you doing? Whereas it could have happened.
Well, when you get too hyper emotionally engaged, you start to overdo your hand. You start to move out of the space that you need to move in because you're reaching.
Right.
That's what I say, like, guys, careful, you're reaching.
Yeah.
Like, careful, you're gonna start to do things that you're not comfortable with. You don't know how to navigate yourself in that space.
That's where I think for us we need to all. I was reading. I was talking to my son yesterday. He's like asking, okay, I see how the hunter is doing well. Deep voice and all of that. Yeah. It looks like you're probably going to be, number one again in the third week. And I said, oh, yeah, I was not even aware.
Yeah.
He brought it. And I went to my wife and said, are you aware that we might actually be?
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, okay.
She's like, great.
Calm down. So, are the dishes done?
Yeah.
Okay, did they finish their homework? So that's really nice.
You know what I mean?
Too.
But, yeah. But at the same time, I said, whoa, Luyanda, I'm actually reading a book. This is interesting. I'm reading a book by this filmmaker who studied the color arts, Alexander. He's got like a Polish kind of last name. Color arts film program, in Los Angeles, and he is saying he says that I'm still reading the first 3 pages. I've reread those first 3 pages easily 10 times. Like I've read and I got it. I think it was last week, and I was saying to you, I said I got it.
Yeah.
What he's saying is that as filmmakers, it's important that you understand this is the art form of moving pictures.
Yeah.
Tell us stories with those pictures.
Yeah.
Dialogue, it's an added way of telling the story. You know what I mean? So go and study the silent film the guys like D.W. Griffith or Charlie Chaplin or I don't know, Oscar Michaud from back in the day. Study how they were able to, technically, how they were able to master to tell a story
100%.
on a silent,
So the key,
you know what I mean?
So
the penny dropped. It's like, oh,
if you get to the foundation,
always refine. Like when you went 300 kilometers per hour, go and learn how to make it go 400 kilometers per hour. But you gotta go and get some lessons.
Yeah,
You
you
gotta.
gotta-
Not enough to just sit at home and imagining yourself in those spaces, pretending. In the U.S. we have a term called armchair quarterbacking, right? Where you're saying like, oh, you're watching the World Cup at home, like I could have made that penalty.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you couldn't have made the penalty. Like they played for 90 minutes. There's 85,000 people in the crowd. You have all the stress of your country on your shoulders.
Yeah.
You couldn't have made the kick.
Yeah.
If you could have made the kick, you would have been there.
Exactly.
Right. But this is I think as we wrap up. But Bonko, thank you so much, brother.
Thank
for
you,
being
thank
here
you,
for
gents.
this
Thank
thing.
you.
I hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast. I'm really, really excited about what this is and the conversations. But more than anything, this is about continuously having yourself and keeping yourself refined. Think about the things that be very intentional about what you want to see next. And dominate your space, right? Don't be concerned. As my dad always says, don't look in, what does he say? Don't look in somebody else's mirror expecting to see your reflection. And I think that's, for me, is a life lesson that I take everywhere I go. So thank you, gentlemen, again. Thank you guys for the business of entertainment. Let us know what country you're in. Let us know the opportunities that are happening in your country. And remember, we call it the business of entertainment because it's entertaining sometimes, but it's a business all the time. I'm Denim Richards. Until next time.
Ciao.